Hello, welcome to Preaching Through Perry County, number 7. And today brings us to what I would imagine is probably one of the most popular places and best known places in all of Perry County, Little Buffalo State Park. And it's named after what's believed that the buffaloes used to roam through the mountains here in Perry County. And it kind of reminded me of my trip to Israel back in 1994. When we were on that trip, we had this amazing guide. The guy was extremely intelligent. He led professional tours in 5 different languages, and he was a captain in the Navy. He also was an archaeologist, and the guy was just an absolute wealth of knowledge, and he was as passionate about his country as his beard was bushy. Now this guy, Ito, one of the things he taught us as we went around to these different cities is he would always teach us about civilization. And one of the things that he ingrained in us was that in order for civilization to occur, you had to have 2 things. You had to have a way to have transportation through the area. The second thing is you had to have fresh water. Without one of those 2 things, they weren't going to build a city or a civilization in that area. And so, as we look at the history of Little Buffalo State Park, we find those 2 things. We have the fresh water of Buffalo Creek. But we also have what used to be a major form of transportation. Back in the 1800s, there was the main thoroughfare from Carlisle up to Sunbury, Pennsylvania, was called the Carlisle Pike. And it flowed right through, or ran right through this valley. And that's where the Blue Ball Tavern used to stand as you enter into Little Buffalo State Park. Well, that particular building was then torn down and turned into a farm building and into a farmhouse, and now stands as the Blue Ball Tavern Museum. Well, that particular museum is a neat place where it tells a lot about the history of this area, but that fresh water and that transportation were both required to have a place here. So basically, it was a rest stop in the area at the time, back in the 1800s. But as we think about that water, I want to go to Scripture for a moment in James 3:10 through 13. Out of the same mouth proceed blessings and cursing. My brethren, this things ought not to be. Does a spring send forth fresh water and bitter from the same opening? Can a fig tree bear olives, or a grapevine bear figs? Thus no spring yields both salt and fresh water. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show by good conduct that his works are done in the meekness of wisdom. I want to talk about the tongue today because there's a lot of disagreements going on. There always are. We got lots of hot button topics and politics, and even in the pandemic, and how we should handle it, when we should go back into public, when we should stop. And here's the thing. This is an answer that might not be right for everyone. We might have different times when it's appropriate for each of us to go back. And so arguing and fighting about when the right time is, that very well may be different for both of us. Now that's something we all need to make our own decisions on. But what I want you to understand today is you will be held accountable for the things that you say. You will be accountable for how you say them. And so first of all, understand that people will disagree. And that's okay. But you need to guard your tongue and be careful how you approach those things, how you have the disagreements. And when I say your tongue, understand, I mean your keyboard just as much as your tongue, because it takes the same position here. As we look through the Scripture, we recognize that if a fresh water has salt water flowing into it, that fresh water becomes salty. It becomes bitter. And we understand as well that a fig tree can't bear grapes, and a grapevine can't bear figs. It just doesn't work. If something bears figs, it's a fig tree. Who is wise and understanding among you? This is a great question. Who's the wise and understanding person among you? He answers his own question. Let him show good conduct, that his works are done in the meekness of wisdom. Did you catch that? The meekness of wisdom. Sometimes our wisest things that we do come in meekness. It's not about proving that we're right. Sometimes it's better to not argue. Sometimes it's just better to let things go, to guard your tongue. It's better to not say anything than end up cursing people. We have to understand that this is how we prove we're wise, through good conduct in guarding our tongues. So I encourage you, as we go forward from this day, whether this be during a pandemic or even after the pandemic, prove yourself to be wise by good conduct and by guarding your tongue carefully. Because when we do those two things, you are proving that you're wise. Have a great day and God bless.